to return to our nature doesn't necessarily mean having to return to living, on the land, digging your hands in the soil and that sort of thing, although that is wonderful. That would be beautiful, ideal, in fact, in so many ways, living with a community of like-minded, like-hearted people who are respectful and joyful and what have you, all of that sort of stuff. That's wonderful. But fundamentally, what returning to nature, returning to our essential nature, what it really means is returning to allowing our cells, our atoms, the fundamental building blocks of our being to vibrate naturally again. If we knew that our cellular reality is bursting with joy, with life, is bubbling with love, but we have gotten in the way. We have gotten in the way somehow, and we are no longer connected. We're no longer aware of this tremendous internal activity of joy that is happening right now inside our own bodies. We're not connected with the building blocks of our being. We've become connected with something which is unnatural, something which is outside of ourselves. See, since we were children, since we were babies, in fact, our attention, our awareness, and it's not something unusual, it's not something strange, attention, awareness. It's basically the apparatus of our perception. It's how we see, how we experience. It's by way of our perceptual apparatus that we receive information. So since the beginning, the very, very beginning, our attention instrument, our perceptual apparatus, our mind, let's even call it, has been drawn to focus outside of ourselves, has been trained to notice the outside ourselves, has been trained to displace outwardly and to become fixated and focused on the outside. And in short, what that has done, the result of this outward displacement of our central perceptual apparatus, our attention, our awareness, our five senses, the externalization of our five senses, the outcome of that, the result of that, is that we have become fixated on the outside, and therefore we have become separated or distanced from the essential experience, the moment to moment, the direct experience of our internal reality, the beingness experience of our reality, which is bursting with life, which is bursting with joy, with delight, with gladness, with excitement. But in our outward externalization, in the outward displacement of our central perceptual apparatus, the light of our awareness, in other words, the attention that we use in order to connect with that which we wish to know. Now it has become displaced outwardly, and the result is we've become distanced from ourselves, and we live like strangers, as if we were strangers inside our own bodies. And so we complain on account of this displacement, on account of this feeling of being inwardly displaced, estranged, in fact. We complain, we feel empty, we feel lost, we feel confused. We live in the dark about ourselves. We feel alone. And we ask existential questions like, who am I? What am I? Why am I? And we ask those questions, again, practically speaking, because the light of our awareness that allows us to know what we need to know is now displaced outside ourselves. It is focused on things. It's focused on the phenomenal, objective world. We're distanced from ourselves. We're distanced from our biology, from our chemistry, from our neurology, the process, the movement of this reality. We're distanced from it. So how can we know who we are? How can we know why we are and what we are? So then the question of returning to nature really refers to how do we return to this internal connectedness so that we may know who we are and so that we may begin to live inwardly guided lives according to that knowing, that direct, instantaneous, moment-to-moment knowing, so that we can also return to the knowing of our essential nature, which is essentially a nature of love, a nature of ecstasy, a nature of delight, a nature of gladness. So the issue then is, how do we return, or we may even put it this way, how do we stop getting in the way? How do we cease to get in the way of this natural connectedness? So it's a question of connectedness. How do we return to being inwardly connected? How do we end this outward displacement? How do we end this being distant from myself? And of course, there are various methods that have been advocated. Methods like meditation, methods like pranayama or breath work and such. These are all practical means of helping us to reconnect with our nature. There's nothing ambiguous about them. Meditation for me just helps me feel good and helps me to know who I am and helps me to live inwardly guided, enlightened life. An enlightened life is a life which is guided by my own internal processes. I don't need anyone to tell me how to live. It's coded in me. The instruction, the manual for how to live is coded in the very beingness of myself. So, other practices like breath work, rebirth in breath work specifically, for me, since I'm a practitioner of rebirth in breath work, is a way of removing the obstructions. It's a way of removing the interferences or that which is in the way of my internal connectedness, that which is stopping me from being inwardly synchronized with the direct movement of life happening inside me. How to bring my attention awareness back within myself, how to reverse, in other words, this displacement of my central perceptual apparatus, to bring it back home so that I may begin to discern my internal reality directly and to find out that I am an internal being of bliss. Ecstasy is not something to achieve, it's not something to get from outside, indirectly by way of things. We complain because we are no longer connected with this internal bliss. And then we try to justify our suffering, our consequent suffering. We try to justify it, we try to excuse it, we try to find reason for it outside ourselves. We say, I am unhappy, which just means that I am not inwardly, directly connected with my bliss. We try to find the reason for that in things. We say, I'm not happy because of that. My partner left me. I'm not happy because I don't have money. I'm not happy because the world is so chaotic. I'm not happy because reality is as it is. I'm not happy because the weather is the way it is. I'm not happy because the way people disrespect and the way people are this and that. We try to find outward causes for our inward feeling of being disconnected from our own internal reality of bliss. Bliss is not something to get. Bliss is a natural phenomenon which is occurring in the vibrational reality of our own atomic cellular structure. The natural reality of our cells, of our atoms, is bliss, and we're not connected with it. We're not aligned with it. We're not synchronized with it. We're synchronized with the world outside now, since from early childhood, as I described earlier, our attention, our central apparatus system, perceptual system, has been displaced outside. It has been caused to become trained or entrained or synchronized with the phenomenal world outside of self. So these practices like meditation, these practices like breath work, pranayama, and so on, they practically work in order to help us to become synchronized once more with our naturalness, with our natural reality. And it's just a question then of removing the obstacles, the obstructions, the resistances, the justification for not doing that. Breath work is a wonderful way. It's really, I discovered breath work long after I discovered meditation. I'd already been meditating for some 15 years when I discovered breath work, and I'd been teaching meditation also for some time. And I was growing a bit disillusioned with meditation because I was teaching so many people, but yet so few were going home and building what I call a successful daily meditation practice, one of consistency and regularity. They would come to the guided sessions and then they would wait for the next week for the next one. They weren't practicing at home. And so I didn't see that as a sign of success. I wondered why. Of course, I knew that the reason was just that meditation was so difficult, because you turn your attention inward and you find your internal reality to be one of tremendous pain. That's the difficulty. It's not that meditation as a practice itself is difficult. It's that you go in and you find out that the mind is so crazy all over the shop. Your body is full of pent-up pains and tensions and so on and so forth. And that makes it difficult. And I used to think if there were only some way to release and to remove these internal resistances, these internal pains and aches, and to quiet the mind first before actually beginning to meditate. And that's when I found breath work as a preliminary kind of act in itself. It is a meditation also. But it's a way of removing the internal blockages that have been building up over time, eventually allowing us to more peacefully be able to sit in meditation in order for us to directly inquire, get a look into our essential nature. So breath work, you can think of it as a room. You can think of your reality when you begin meditation as a room that has been closed for quite a long time, and you step inside, and then you try to sit, but it stinks in there. It's been closed for 20 odd years or 30 years or whatever, and there's dust and mites all over the place. It's best that you open the windows first. Open the windows. Even get a fan if you have to. And breathe some new life into this room. Let the old, stale, stagnant air in the room release. And now sit without this stench, without all this dusts and so on. Now sit and enjoy. So that's what breathwork is. It's a way of opening the windows and letting in some fresh air, putting a fan, fanning the interiority of the room so as to allow you to sit and to reconnect, resynchronize with your cellular reality in order to experience the delight of your being, the natural delight, not some second party delight that you get as a result of things, you know. And it's who you are. You know, we've turned happiness into something, into some kind of an achievement, into something that we get second party by way of things. But what if happiness is our internal reality? It is our starting point, and we're here to celebrate it. We're not here to achieve it. We're here to celebrate our existing happiness with sharing, with love, with togetherness, with innovation, with creativity, and all those wonderful human attributions. But we've turned happiness into something that we should get, and have turned our lives into the chasing for happiness. And get that, the chasing for something that we already are, but have become disconnected from. You know, so it's just all upside down. And there is a reason for that, which we may look into in some other talk. So here it is, in summation, our essential reality, the building blocks of our reality, our cells and our atoms, are at any given moment are bubbling and bursting and exploding with life, with love, with joy, with ecstasy. They already are, but we have become disconnected from them and connected outwardly, and now suffer the consequence, and therefore we chase, and we excuse, and we justify. Meditation, breathwork are a practical way of returning to an internal connection with our essential nature. If you want to know more, let me know. This is Bassam. Take care. Have a lovely day. It's a beautiful day outside. I'm going to sit or exercise for 5-10 minutes. Bye-bye.